going to let the panelists introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about them and their companies, and we'll start with that. So, Michael, let's go with you first.
Celeste, thank you for having us.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Mike Barber, I'm the VP of Sales at iHeartMedia in the Tampa market. iHeartMedia, a little bit about us, we are the biggest media company in the country. So I always like to use props, and I brought a couple props to kind of describe what we do. And I was walking down the hall with my Beats by Dre on, and I thought, my God, am I going to a football game? I mean, is this is what you see. So when you think about the audio or sound business that iHeart is in, right? Think about this. Now, add a different layer and understand how has this thing changed the way you consume media, and most in particular, sound or audio, the business that we're in. And then add up this bad boy, right? Who could have conceived just 10 years ago that the way we consume media would be so drastic with the advent of the phone, right? So understand that with over 800 radio stations all across the country, huge digital platforms where we can target you on your phone. Yes, we do know where you are, right? Delivering messages. You want to be in front of people? We do events, right? Podcasting. Whew. I mean, that is a word we hear 4 times a day at iHeartMedia, and we're invested solely and big in the podcast space. We are the #1 commercial podcaster in the world. So when you think about audiences and how it pertains to CBD, we put the content out there, attract our consumers, our listeners, and then lend their ears, their eyes in some instances, to you guys, to sell product, to educate. And that's what we're here at iHeart. And Celeste, I couldn't thank you enough for making us part of this panel.
Very welcome, Michael. Thank you. Thank you. Flip.
Hi, Celeste.
Hi,
How are
Flip.
you doing?
I'm great.
Hey, guys.
I'm great.
My name's Flip Croft-Cudero. I'm the principal of Greenlit Agency. We're an ad agency that's focused in the cannabis and CBD space. A little bit about my experience. I started another agency that wasn't focused in such an amazing space, just in the general market, 10 years ago. From there, we've kind of spawned off and built a few other sister agencies. Actually, one of our sister agencies works with iHeart, which is awesome.
Nice plug.
Yeah, would you like that? And what else do we have? We also actually bought a podcast company, which we're working as a sub-agency right now that does more kind of narrative podcasts and stuff, trying to get awesome content on places like iHeart. So I've been focused in the cannabis and CBD space for the past year and a half, and it's been amazing. We're a full-service agency. We do full creative, digital media, traditional media, anything that gets your brand in front of customers.
Awesome. Okay. So I can tell you I've personally used for my 10 companies in the space, I've personally used both iHeart and as well as digital and print and everything that there is to use for the space. And owning a marketing firm in the space for 8 years, I can't tell you how many times I got the question, where can I advertise? So that's why this panel is here, because fortunately, there's new ways that are opening up, but you got to think outside the box. So with that said, what is outside the box? What are the tricks and the tips and the things to get around it, and how do you get around things? So that's what we're going to discuss a little bit here. Now, historically, radio has been a hit and miss. Some stations allow it, some stations don't, depends how you word it, depends what you say. I can tell you that iHeart has opened up to CBD companies advertising on their network. So that is a very important thing for the people here to know. We're using it. There's a lot of companies in the CBD space that are choosing now to use it. So definitely one of the reasons I wanted Michael here. I am going to start with Flip, though, and I'm going to say, Flip, I go to your company and I say, I have a CBD product. I am having, Google knocked me off. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to do Facebook. They knocked me off. I'm doing SEO to the best I can. There's a couple SEO tricks I'm trying. Mm-hmm. What are you going to tell this person?
So that's like super common, obviously. Like
Yep.
the things that really, really suck about this industry from an advertising perspective is that paid search, so Google AdWords and things like that, and then paid social is kind of prohibited. Now, there's a little opening up to some CBD topicals, so I think we talked about that a little bit in Denver with paid social, but I think where I typically start with the CBD or cannabis brand, especially CBD, I think I start with SEO. I think that we don't talk about that a lot in digital marketing, especially in this industry, because we want to like, a lot of people are kind of new to advertising, so they just want to get in front of customers, right? Like, how do I get Instagram ads, you know? The problem is you can't do that. Hey, welcome. Hey, we were waiting for you. Problem is you can't really, do that. So really focusing in search early on, SEO for your website, and if you have an e-commerce site or anything like that, I would focus, kind of solely in that. And then, it's based on your brand. Who is your target customer? Who are you trying to reach? Who is your actual consumers? And then building a media plan based on that. I think so many people jump into channels and tactics first, and they don't think about really who is the specific customer that's buying your product. So yeah, I could talk ad nauseum about that, but that's where I would start in building a media plan for you. Hey.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about being late here. We had 4 accidents on the highway, but what I'd like to check before we jump into some deeper details on this is where everybody is right now currently in your business. If you're sort of in a startup level or kind of mid-sized and you have a lot of advertising campaigns going already, or sort of large scale where you have maybe multiple agencies working for you. How many are like in the startup level where you don't have advertising campaigns going yet? Okay. How many people have advertising campaigns going already? A few? And are those mostly digital, or do you have also like outdoor and print and radio and TV? Or how many are doing the outdoor and not digital, and, as well as digital? Nobody? So it's all digital? Who's doing digital? Got it. Okay, so we'll stick there probably. How about mid-sized companies? Any mid-sized companies? Okay. All right, so that kind of paints a good picture of where we're going. And you guys, so you're at iHeartMedia, right?
That's Michael.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Mike. Okay.
We look alike. It's fine.
So for a digital marketing campaign, if I'm a startup company and I want to launch the brand, let's line it up. Like, what do I have to position myself like so that people are going to take notice of my brand over all the other options out there?
I just talked a little bit.
Yeah, I can. I'll step in here a little bit. I mean, at iHeart, and I have my digital expert here, Kelly, in the front. I'm certainly not the expert, but I surround myself with much smarter people. That's a huge space for us. And when you can combine the power of sound and storytelling, which is what we do, in the sound and audio business, and really hone in, whether it be through OTT, which is advertising to people who have cut the cord. Here's my Roku, here's my Chromecast. My kid says, oh, I'm watching an ad. No, you're not watching an ad. You're streaming an ad. Very different nowadays. So, we combined all of the elements that really can, and I think the biggest thing we can do right now as a media is educate, especially in CBD. The thing I hear a lot about in a lot of ways that people are using our space and the digital space at iHeart is to educate the consumer. Like, what is it? What does it mean? Is it this? Is it that? And then we tell the story and we share the story. So we share the story through your ears, and then we share the story sometimes through your eyes. Right, so I think, it's a digital and it's an audio story that we're telling. And when you can find those people and hit them several different ways, which is what we're doing here at iHeart, then you've really got a marketing campaign. Then you've got an idea and a strategy around moving product, whatever it is that the end goal you're looking to receive with your CBD company, no matter if you're the startup or at the big level, right? So thank you for allowing me to answer that. I hope I did.
Okay. And so if you want to position a brand, where is it? So you said video, I think, and audio?
Sure, yeah. So the OTT space, if everyone's familiar, you hear the term cord cutting, you hear cord never. So like I mentioned, my kids, they're watching, but they're watching through a Roku stick, right? Or Google Chromecast. They're not watching cable the way that we used to grow up with the black box and watching television commercials. So we're delivering ads now to devices like that. Looks like a 15, 30-second commercial. Most people don't know the difference, but it's being delivered through streaming and not through the coax cable anymore.
Okay, would you agree? Would you add to that?
Yeah, well, I think I would jump back, honestly, especially because there's so many startups here. I think branding is the number one thing, and like I said about earlier, and I hate to sound like being a dead horse here, but focusing on your target consumer, who is your target market, what is specific about your brand that's a differentiating characteristic? Why would someone want to actually buy your product? And communicating that in any channels necessary. So I kind of talked a little bit about SEO. I think from a search perspective, obviously everyone's searching about what is CBD, how is this going to affect me? Can I take it with my heart medicine? Are topicals bullshit? Everyone's searching this stuff. So that's why, from a search perspective, SEO is so important to start now, because it's a long play, right? Anyone who's worked in SEO before, show of hands, if you ever, right? It takes months. It could take a year to hit. You've got 10 pages, 10 slots on that first page Google result, right? That's it, plus 3 ads. And the problem is you could search CBD, anything on education about CBD right now, and guess what? There's 10 websites that are already in those top 10 spots, right? So you have to start now, early on in your company, so that eventually you can get there. What else would I would say? I think from a most impactful aspect, if that's what if you're kind of leaning towards, I think that video and streaming video has been the most impactful thing for advertising and marketing, since social media kind of came, or I guess since social media platforms started allowing video. Obviously, we know this, so most people watch video ads. There's a reason why TV commercials are a big deal, even still, is because video is a medium that really captures us. It arrests our attention, but also it allows things to inspire us, to make us have a call to action, and it's also used to educate. So I think, sometimes that's the most expensive stuff you could do. There's cheap ways to do video, but everyone can spy when you're doing it low quality. But I would say, generally, not knowing specifically about what we're talking about from a brand perspective, I would say video is an incredible channel to use.
Okay, so if we wanted to do like a mock brand right now, and let's pick an actual launch strategy that most people here could do some form of. So if we're going to start SEO, can we put PPC in there, and we're going to target with video on social and YouTube and other,
no.
and maybe some channels? No? What do you want to do?
You can't do search, right? You can't do Google Ad search or AdWords and search is not allowed. They don't allow CBD advertising, which is a huge challenge, right? We talked a little bit about this earlier from a social paid perspective. A few months ago, Facebook and Instagram, and that company owns WhatsApp, that Facebook, came out saying, okay, we're going to allow CBD topicals in a kind of a trial run. But still, even so, there's not a lot of CBD topicals that are advertising. As you guys have known, probably doing organic social, your stuff has probably been shut down by now. And if it hasn't, it might. It probably will. I know specifically in the cannabis space, we have such a hard challenge with that. And CBD is just that cousin. And sometimes, unfortunately, federal regulations of advertising treat CBD in the same way as cannabis, which is challenging.
So what about the pay-per-click networks? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to add, I will tell you some success that we've seen early on with lots of your type of businesses in this room. Email marketing, right? Video pre-roll, banners. So all of those we've seen success, and that's, I won't say entry level because, depending on your budget and depending on who you're looking to reach, we've seen a lot of success with those 3 platforms, as I'm sure you have too, in particular, to get up and going and really all right, this is who I want to target. This is, the budget we have targeted around it. And from a digital perspective, it's email, it's video pre-roll, right? It's banner ads. The radio stations, we also had a lot of success where they're owned and operated. Go to xyzfm.com, your favorite radio station, and look at your DJs, and you're going to see ads there. So I will tell you from, I don't want to say entry level because it's not, but from people who are just getting their feet wet in the space and looking to target and market the product, those three tactics especially have been helpful.
Okay, so let's assume we have to actually make money on the campaigns that we do and actually convert, to buying customers and then make them repeat customers. What's the strategy to do that?
I think specifically here, what I found out with a lot of CBD brands is they always have this like e-commerce component to them, right? So retailers, CBD retailers and stuff, they have their own online shop. A lot of brands are selling online. Most of the CBD brands here are probably selling online, yeah? Show of hands? Yeah. So the e-commerce marketing is infinitely scalable in the sense of budget, right? Like I can spend 50 grand, 100 grand, $250,000 on an e-commerce budget. I could also spend $1,000, right, a month, right? And so from a startup standpoint, I say, like I said, look at your brand, make sure you're positioned correctly. You know who you're going after, and I can't harp on that enough because it's the number one thing that people miss. And then when you're out there marketing your product, no one's buying your product, or the person that you want to buy your product or you think is going to be your consumer is not. So look at the actual data and really position correctly. And then from an e-commerce standpoint, it's old school, landing page, setting up, digital marketing funnels, and driving that traffic straight to that website, and specifically, I think, to the products that you're marketing. Does that make sense? So if you don't have a huge budget, what I would say is pick a few products, a topical, your tincture, whatever, your gummies. Focus on that. Look at the landing page. Look at the product page that's on your website. Do your job, hire someone or work in doing this yourself, your SEO, specifically around those keywords, right? Write some blog posts and some other content that's pushing back to that product page. Set up these funnels. There's an amazing service, actually, called Unbounce, which I don't know, agencies use this all the time. We use this. But it's a service that basically sets up privatized landing pages that are kind of off of your website. But it sets up marketing funnels where you're allowed to be able to track people as they're kind of seeing your ads, driving to that landing page and then making an action. And then being able to change that landing page based on what you get, right? Looking at the data saying, oh, a lot of people are putting this to the cart, but they're not fulfilling it. Or a lot of people are looking this page, but they're not clicking add to cart. Okay, what are we doing to make that difference? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think if we start with a landing page on our best-selling product, or what we hope is going to be the best-selling product.
Sure.
And then we're going to drive traffic there. Let's assume, we're going after, we know our demographic basically. Where's the leanest place to go get it? Yeah.
I think the most beneficial place is not leanest. I think the most beneficial place is search, is SEO. I think the leanest is probably organic social, honestly, which is challenging because, obviously the channels that we have now, Facebook, Instagram, are the biggest ones that we're trying to play in. You don't get a lot of that virality anymore, right? If you really want social channels that are going to set up or that really create more virality, you're looking at just two. You're looking at LinkedIn, you're looking at TikTok. They're the only channels that allow normal everyday people like you and me to be able to go, in a sense, viral overnight. So that would be the leanest way. I think that if you have more budget, if you want to kind of scale in more enterprise way. We just launched with one of our clients, Kiva Confections. They're a cannabis company in California. where we're able to do programmatic advertising, which is, banner ads throughout the internet that follow you around. You guys know all these ads, right? We're able to do that in the space, but also track back to the dispensary. So actually give back a return on foot traffic, right? So right now it costs Kiva $1.08 to drive a person into a dispensary. Now the problem is that sounds great, right? That sounds awesome. Like I would love to pay $1 to get a new customer, right? The challenge with that is, the scale. Just to get that much data to be able to do that tracking, you're gonna have to spend at least, 25, 35 grand a month to be able to just get that data. But once you do have that data, it's phenomenal and it's amazing, and it's amazing for anybody who's working in the retail space.
Anybody here going to be spending 25, 30 grand a month?
Not
What
yet.
about 1,000 a month?
Cool.
Anybody going to be around 1,000 a month? You can do that. Anybody? What about 3,000 a month? What about more like 500 a month? Most of you aren't raising your hands at all. Let's go with like $1,000 a month. What would you do?
Yeah, I would do what I said before, which is like focus on SEO and then focus on that e-commerce, standpoint.
So there's a long-term play there where you're going to definitely go. How much should you put in your budget? Should it be like 50-50 on SEO and then on immediate traffic?
Man, I think that's a great question. I think it's depending on. Okay, if it was my company,
Yeah.
I would put 75% of my budget into SEO at this point. If I'm starting a CBD company, to be totally honest.
And then just wait it out.
Yeah, I think the content play, it depends on how you want to build your business, but I think, building consistent content, especially starting outwards, and here's the thing. The big companies right now, like the Charlotte's Web of the world, the big CBD companies, which there's not a lot of them, they own the searches right now. They kill it. And those are the ones that are seeing the most impactful growth right now. So, at this stage of the game, I would go heavy in there, which is crazy because I'm an advertiser. Like, I'd love to spend your media money, to spend it in something that's so hardcore in marketing. That's a really hard, a challenging medium to work in. I think is interesting, but I would say that's what I would give from a CBD perspective.
Okay. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, from our point of view, we'd look at 3 different tactics. I mentioned before emails. I would also looking at podcasting, right? Buying commercial time inside a podcast in your DMA, right? If you're in Orlando, delivering the ads to the people who are listening to podcasts in the DMA. And also our fun little iHeartRadio app, right? So understand that as people are consuming media every day, and this is the business that we're in, for someone who's newer or getting into the space, those are 3 tactics that we use pretty successfully on a moderate budget, I would say, and then watch it grow. But know your audience. To your point, know your audience, know what they're trying to do. And then, again, pick what are you trying to promote. You can't promote everything. So figure out something that you're trying to promote, know the audience that buys that or purchases that, and then go after them and start that way. Then you build the business. Now we get into the 5 grand, 10 grand, 20, 30, 40 grand a month type advertisers, right? But I would agree with you,
Okay, so what would be the narrowest framework from which we can launch the brand? So like you said, the major brands they're spending $25,000 on SEO, but you still think SEO is the best way to go. So 75% of everybody.
Sorry, that was a media budget.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Overall.
SEO can scale up as well, but with a $750 or $1,000 a month SEO budget, you could push some. You could do some great work, I think.
Okay, and so I think you can have some limiting. Having some limitations actually could be an advantage in some cases. So if you have those brands are huge, they're like omnipresent basically. So they can't be really, really deep in one if they're doing it all. So can we beat them in one channel with a small budget? How would you do it?
I think you beat it from a small consumer base or a targeted consumer base. I think, and I think to Michael's point, when you're working in, especially in podcasts, right? If you're going to choose a podcast to advertise on, make sure that that's a podcast that's resonating, obviously, with your consumers. Right now, it's challenging to do, to do an ad that's going to go across, all platforms. We have so many choices. Do you know how many tinctures I can buy right now? Name it. I can name. Yeah, right, exactly. Like, you have to stand out in that way. And I feel like from an entrepreneurial standpoint, if you're really building your brand, I keep saying this shit, but it's like, who are you targeting? Who is your consumer? And make sure that everything that you do is focused towards them, right? And so that way, we don't have to look at how do we get all the pie, right? We all want to be, billionaires, I guess, in the CBD industry. Fine. There's only going to be a few people who are actually going to do that. Most of everyone else are going to build, hopefully, great, sustainable, amazing brands that deliver on their promise, right? I think that we can do that in a way where we not in a sense, we create lanes for each other from brands, and we say, hey, this is who we are. This is our target, our target market, right? So if your tincture is for old people, boomers with arthritis or something, it's very different than if you have like a hemp flower, right? And you're trying to get potheads to smoke CBD. Like, that's a totally different market, right? You have a totally different consumer. And so your marketing should obviously, play to whoever your consumer is.
All right, would you suggest a methodology to actually getting your differentiator situated and positioned correctly against all those other options?
Yeah, okay, so a lot of agencies have branding, processes or branding workshops. This is the number one thing that people don't purchase, especially when they start marketing their product. So any agency who's worth their, weight in salt is gonna have, some kind of branding workshop or process. For us, we established 4 main things. One is your target consumer, right? Who are you talking to? Your differentiating characteristic, what makes your product different, right? Are you organic? Are you grown in this certain way? What is the components about your product that actually make you different? The brand promise, which is the emotional benefit that the consumers get, like the reason why we buy, or I used to buy Apple products, right? Because it made me feel smart. I don't feel like really that anymore, but there was a benefit, an emotional benefit, the reason why we buy the brands that we do, and especially the ones that we create loyalty to, right? The brands that you buy consistently, it's because they're actually giving you not only a good product, but you feel something. And consumers purchase on how they feel, right? They purchase on their gut. They don't make rational decisions. No one in this room makes rational decisions when you buy anything. So that emotional benefit's really important. And the final thing is brand personality, which is how your brand walks and talks.
That sounds good. So I heard Seth Godin say this once. It's you really need to focus on your 1,000 core followers. So if we were to, let's say we know who we think that might be, and we want 1,000 repeat customers, that's going to sustain us no matter what happens from there. If we have that core 1,000 repeating, we'll be okay. What's an example of a differentiation you've seen in a brand that really stuck out, where you're like, that's going to grab this particular audience, even though it's niche and small, and it's going to hold them the whole time?
I'll speak to that. Branding at the heart of one of the things we do, a great story. And I don't know exactly what the story is, and I don't know what your story is, but the way you tell the story, and most importantly, who tells the story. I think for us, I was trying to find a lot of commercials in CBD across the country, and somebody was talking about their animal, right? Giving it to their animal and how it made them feel, how it made their animal feel. And it was, I don't remember the exact name of the brand, but they were telling their story. So the companies that I've seen it do the best and that have branded themselves well, whether it be in the CBD space or any space, or the people that can tell the story. And like you said, evoke emotion. You got to be able to relate to the person on the other end. And I think, I'll tell you a quick story. One other thing that we're seeing a lot on the iHeart side is when you think about radio or the sound business, we were the first influencers. Before there was Instagram influencers and, Kardashian getting paid $1 million a post now, which is amazing, right? Radio, you were the companion. The DJ that you were listening to was telling you and talking to you one-on-one on your ride to work or ride home. We've seen some of the success come in the CBD space from our influencers telling their story, how it makes them feel, their own personal story to the audience that, oh, they're like me. They connected. They had the same concern that I had. But I will tell you that emotion, feeling, and your story from a brand is what, we've seen some great success around, and using yourself or other people to tell that story.
So maybe you could use customers?
Always. I mean, it's, there is nothing like someone who's had their life changed by, whether it be CBD or anything to that effect, talking to someone that's like them, to relate to them. And then, you've got to hit them multiple ways. We feel, you can't, it's not all the audio. It's got to be in the digital space. It's got to be in the video space. I mean, it's, go to an event, see your favorite CBD store at an event doing what they're doing. I mean, you've got to hit them multiple ways, but no doubt that, telling that story and invoking that emotion. But customers, all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a few customers or clients I think that have interesting brands, but I think one that comes to mind is Ignite Cannabis Company, who we work on their CBD work as well. I don't know if you guys know about this, but this is a company that's started by this guy Dan Bilzerian, who's like an Instagram
Influencer, yes.
Yeah, he's like the modern day Hugh Hefner, I guess. My client isn't here, so I could say this, but it's interesting because the brand itself, I do not, agree with. It's really challenging. I mean, it's a lot of like half-naked women and guns and, drugs and things like that. Their target market is males 21 to 28. That's it. And that's all they're going for. And if you've seen any of the marketing, if you've seen any of the advertising, that's all they're going for. They do not care about anyone else. They get a lot of bad press. They've gotten a lot of bad press from a lot of our billboards and stuff that we put around in California because they're not marketed towards the general market. They're marketed towards the college, high school kid who's like, I don't know, who's like ripping bongs and who's just like, is indulgent and is in a crazy phase of their life. They know, unfortunately, whether you like them or not, they know who their target market is, and that's who they go after. I think another example is a new launch, actually, of a new product I just saw at Hall of Flowers that just launched, I think, last week. This is not my client, so I can talk about them freely, I guess. It's a cannabis brand called Her Highness, which is out of New York, and they're a female-based brand. Everything, their business is based, they're all women. They make their products for women. I was just on their website. They don't speak to men, right? I don't get it, right? In a lot of their marketing, it's fine because I'm not the person that's trying to buy their product, right? I'm not the person that they're trying to get to buy the product. I had another example, but I forgot. But I think in those ways that you see those successful brands, breaking out, speaking to a specific niche. I think the ones that will not break out are the ones that are trying to appeal to everyone. If you think your CBD product or cannabis product is for everyone, then you will not last. I think that's just the truth.
Okay, so let's say we picked out the audience, a really narrow niched audience, like 21 to 28, or we could go seniors. Can you reach seniors online, just by the way, real quick?
Sure. There's actually an amazing case study on AARP, I think it is, that used Facebook to introduce some product or whatever. I've always brought that up, but I think it's amazing. Also goes to show you there's old people on Facebook. That's where they're at. But.
And I will tell you, from the iHeart perspective, the data we have, some of our news talk radio stations across the country are some of the ones that are most heavily listened to on the app.
Oh, totally.
So you think of a 45-year-old plus male listening to a news talk station, and they're listening on their app.
All right.
So those people are there.
So we can bounce between a conservative
Sure.
option
Yeah, yeah,
and a very loose option for 21 to 28. I want to go to the gym and get ripped, and that's what they think CBD
Yeah.
will do because
Yeah.
they just don't know anything.
Right.
And then you have seniors who actually probably have arthritic knuckles, and the product has to be high quality. It has to be pharmaceutical
Has to
grade.
work.
They're going to pay top dollar. They're going to repeat purchase if it works. So if you have a quality product and you target that audience, they've also got money. And if they've retired with any amount of savings, they're going to have some money, and they're probably not just going to buy it one time, I would think. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we sort of start there, what's going to make a product different? Would it be like pain cream for knuckles? Would you focus on any certain area right now that you're noticing out there in the market? Where is there a gap that you might want to go for first?
From a product specific, like kind of an application? Huh. I don't necessarily know. I would say, like I said before, I think there's a lot of opportunity for CBD topicals, like indigestibles or non-digestibles, I guess, which one, I don't understand. I really don't get why it's okay to put it on your skin, but you can't eat the thing, but whatever. I guess from an advertising perspective, it's a big difference. But yeah, I think I would focus in that just because, paid social is a way that you can use your favorite $1,000 a month, from a media perspective and push that. And that's the only, kind of option that we have right now for that. But yeah.
Is that less competitive than, say, a tincture?
I don't know. I actually couldn't answer.
So that maybe it'd
that
be a
question.
test then, maybe by like A/B test on your landing page that you were talking about with a tincture maybe and a cream.
Yeah, sure. I think that, I would set up the advertising based on the product if you're doing this kind of e-commerce, strategy that kind of we talked about before. So, your ads are all about topical or arthritis or whatever. Well, you can't make health claims, but you could talk about pain. You could talk about how this product can help. And then driving to that product page, of the, the topical. It gets a little tricky though. I want to put a little asterisk on it because there's definite rules on, you can't send someone a topical ad on Facebook and then shoot them to like a tincture, landing page, right? They have to be consistent. And even your other products can't be prominent on that web page, right? So you can link to other products, but basically what they want to do is make sure, like they're saying, okay, you can advertise topicals, make sure that you're selling topicals and that's it, that you're not trying to do a bait and switch.
So let's say if we went real lean on the budget, we're talking about one product on one page with a story that you're using from a customer base that's actually used the product. Even if you're white labeling it, you could probably find the customers of whatever product the white label is coming from. And maybe you could put the brand story there, or maybe not just the brand story, but the product customers' stories. And then drive traffic, you said from LinkedIn and TED Talk. And what about other... TikTok.
TikTok.
Sorry.
Very different than TED
Gotcha.
Talks.
Oh, okay.
Very, very different.
What's the demographic on TikTok?
Super young.
Yeah, why would that
Kids.
It's old Musically, right?
Yeah, it is the old Musically. Because I say that because, like I said, there's only 2 platforms that allow for virality in that way. Meaning, if I like a post on LinkedIn, like if I like your post on LinkedIn, my friends see it, right? Like we're all business people. We know we've used LinkedIn before. Like, do you want to know why your post gets 1,000 views and your Facebook post gets 2 likes? It's because LinkedIn actually pushes content in the same way TikTok does too. I'm not saying, look, am I saying like, oh, we all get on TikTok now? No, I'm saying if your product focuses in that, if you think there's opportunity there, then TikTok is a good place to be at. There's a lot of brands on TikTok that aren't 14-year-old girls in their bedrooms. That sounds so weird, but it's true, like there really is. And I think there's a lot of opportunity it's just untapped. I know I sound crazy, but trust me, in a few years, y'all are gonna be like, well, fucking Flip talked about TikTok back in that CBD expo. And, gosh darn it, he's right, So I just think it's untapped right now. No one's touching it. So I don't know. You wanna talk about opportunities, there's one for you.
Would you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just say, there are, there are some regulations and guidelines around what you can do, what you can say, and for us, it's changing every day, and we have a whole department that deals specifically with this to keep up with the regulations, But, from the delivery point of view, I mean, there's, no social media, so, for us, we stick with what we know and what we do best, and I've mentioned that ad nauseum, so I don't want to get into that again, but not much more to add to that.
Okay. So we have probably in about 4 minutes. Could we maybe like give an example of what you think most people here would be able to pull off that would be sustainable and keep like so that the budget that you're spending starts to bring in customers, and then the follow-up, you have email campaigns and upsells and membership programs and all these things that are going to sustain you so that you can get through your first year in 4 minutes.
Sure, yeah. Okay, so I would say SEO, if you're doing a topical, do paid social. Two other ways, I think we talked a little bit about, influencers. The influencer game used to be huge before, Instagram ads, right? Every brand was on there. Now that industry is is pretty fragmented. It's kind of challenging. The cool thing, though, is that we can use it in cannabis and CBD brands right now. So, if they're, you got to watch out if your influencers are deemed celebrities or not. Which honestly, you're probably not going to be dealing with that. But I think from a micro-influencer standpoint, reaching out to people and sending them free product and saying, hey, would you review this? Would you, share this? Hey, I might pay you a little bit for it, I think is huge. And then what else would I scale into that? I would focus a lot into your website and making sure that your website is a great experience. Just in the way that it communicates your brand. And then if you have any little money left over from that, I'm seeing a huge influx of experiential marketing. So events, music festivals, concerts, things like that, where cannabis and CBD brands are making kind of a name for themselves there. That's one-to-one marketing, but it's also the most amazing, and I come from an alcohol and beverage background, but sampling is huge. And that's another thing that most people don't kind of get in this industry yet, because we're all startups, we only have, our favorite 1,000 products, so it's like, how do I give it away to sample, But sampling is gonna be the number one thing that people need to try your product to see if it works, and then that will continue to, to buy from you. And so experiential is a good opportunity for that.
Great. Anything to add to that?
No, I mean, just, I'd look at our, the digital platforms, especially if we're talking about maybe a modest budget just starting, and I've said it, email marketing, video pre-roll.
Can you describe your email marketing?
Yeah, I mean, basically think about who are you trying to target, right? And then, it's almost like the whiteboard effect. Start with a whiteboard. All right, who are you trying to target? Figure out who that is. What are you trying to tell them, right? What are you trying to tell them? What's the story? So, think of, we're talking about emails, everyone knows what that is, and then understand that, all right, here are the different areas, these are the different groups we can target, this is the different geographical areas we can target.
Are you
and
buying
send
email
messages.
blasts, or are you following up on customers you're capturing yourself?
I would say, I would defer to Kelly, my digital strategist, on that.
We actually do it both ways. We do email acquisition lists, but we can compress your database, so that way we're reaching out to new consumers and not reaching those who are already currently buying your products on a reoccurring basis or on a first-time basis. We have that information to reach out to those individuals and already know what products they're interested in.
Okay. How would you say that conversion rate compares to something like maybe display ads or PPC?
Heck yeah.
It really depends on what your audience is. I know it's come up multiple times, but who is your consumer? What are they doing on a regular basis? For what cohorts we're marketing towards them with the advertising message? We do a lot of email, what we call acquisition, which is going to compress your database against this list to make sure we're reaching new consumers. And we see, hello. And we see the open rates and the click-through rate to be very high. From that point, whether they're purchasing a product for the first time on a reoccurring basis to refill it, or it's a one-time purchase, we do see those at very high levels.
That sounds like, so that's a good effective way to do it, right? And then, but do you guys also do any follow-up so you can kind of keep that person coming back? When you get a click, you get an open, then you get a click, then you get another click, then they put some in the shopping cart, bail, then you send another email. Do you do all of that?
We do, and we do it a couple different ways. So once somebody engages with that initial email, we can do a second drop to that consumer. We do recommend the creative being slightly different because they already engaged, they already know who you are and what you do. Now we want them to come back and purchase that product, or they put it in the shopping cart, but they didn't check out. So we want to follow up with them with that product. The other thing that we can do is if they click through to the website, we can remarket them with display across a multiple of different platforms to make sure that we're keeping your brand and your product top of mind after they've already been brought into your site and established interest in your products.
That's good. So we're about 2 minutes over. Do we have time to take a couple questions? Are there any questions? Go ahead.
I was just wondering, from the iHeart side and experiential events and more larger scale or smaller scale events, is that something that you guys have started doing, seen? Are there any restrictions on that? I know there's obviously some artists and brands that have started to get involved that are doing things in collaboration. So I wondered if that was involved at all.
Definitely from the event side. Understand that every event and every venue has their own restrictions, and they can say yes and they can say no. So from getting through that hurdle first, no doubt. I mean, in iHeart we do thousands of events across the country, all throughout the year. So and people want to get products in people's hands. I mean, like you said, the taste testing per se. But yes, we see that as a huge growth factor for us now and in the future.
Are they going through you guys or through the actual artists that are doing the events or the shows, or what?
It depends on the product. A lot of them are going through us. We have relationships with them. Sometimes if you're going through the artist, you're maybe a bigger brand, and that's, something else you're doing. But a lot of times in the local markets, they're coming through us. We're putting together a program that we think will work, and it's a multifaceted program. The end result may be the event, but we're doing a lot of stuff leading up to the event too as well that will ensure success.
So you take, at your events, you take vendors with like tents where you could pass out your product samples that drive them to your website? That's
it depends. Every event is different, and every venue is different. But, if they say yes in certain states and certain, regulations, yes. And I think you're going to see a little bit more of that as we move forward in the CBD space.
All right.
There are 160 markets across the country, so it really depends on what markets we're looking at. State by state, we do have some different restrictions on what we can and cannot do in the event space. That's something we can definitely follow up with.
Sounds great. Any more questions? One more?
On your iHeartMedia podcast platform, how do you sell, is it sold on a CPM basis? How do you even try to determine what it's going to cost, and how do you do the insertion of the ad?
Yep, great question. Yes, it is sold on a CPM basis, and right now we are selling it only geographically, so by DMA. Now, if you are a really big brand and you would like to get into the Ron Burgundy podcast and be one of his 4 sponsors, that's a different level and a different investment, and we can certainly talk to you about that. But if you're advertising in this space, we do right before the podcast. We've got a commercial inside the podcast, and then one after the podcast. And a lot of times we suggest you do those commercials a little differently, more of a dry read. Understand that your people are talking, and you may not want a screaming ad coming in the middle of the podcast of someone that's maybe talking a little bit more on their level. So, but yeah, right now it's geo-targeted, and it's in the DMA. But we certainly, as stuff evolves, my guess is we're going to get more and more specific. But it is CPM. Kelly, anything to add that I missed?
You could just, I know if I was going to try to get on Tim Ferriss or Joe Rogan,
Oh.
huge, but what's kind of the general CPM cost on an average podcast?
$25 cost per 1,000 in the media space.
Minimum buy?
There is no minimum.
You can spend $25?
$10.
Ooh. You get one commercial. One commercial.
People. Yeah, and I would just say that, like Joe Rogan, like podcasts, and all those other big ones, Most of those you're going to purchase straight from them. So there's only selected, podcasts that will, when you're doing that and not a, kind of a digital format in this way, where you get the host run, the podcast host read ads. Those are all individual, and there's a lot of podcasts that won't take our industry right now, but there are some that do. But just to let you know.
Well, that sounds good. I hope that was very helpful for your CBD advertising. Thank you for coming. We'll see you in the next panel.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, guys.